I wanted to ask you that before I got on the mic, so there wasn't a record of me being an idiot in case it wasn't.
When the camera's on, it's all a big bit of fun on the big red shutter club. On the big red shutter club. I'll do.
So, hello and welcome back to the Red Shutter Club. I am here today with Jade Dyas.
Hello.
How are we doing tonight?
I'm good, thank you.
It's not tonight. It's 12:39.
Yeah, it's very looks like daylight.
It is. So Jade, you are definitely a part of this music scene here, but you're a part of it in a different way than a lot of people are. You're in the bands, but you also do a lot with the sort of tourism side of things, and you work a lot with marketing. So just tell us a bit about yourself and we'll see where this goes.
Yeah, of course. So, like you said, I work in marketing, promotion, and events. My main client at the moment is George Harrison Liverpool Home, 25 Upton Green in Speke. So that's the home where George Harrison grew up and he rehearsed with the Quarrymen. But yeah, so that's my main client. But I work with other people as well because I do it freelance. But yeah, like you said, I also am currently sort of getting into, becoming a musician because I play keys. But yeah, my main job at the moment is marketing.
I don't think we've really had anyone on who's like a part of the like very specifically the Beatles circuit. And because that's a more touristy side, and a lot of the people that we have on are just singer-songwriters out here living their lives. And the most connection they have is maybe Monday Club. So tell us a bit about what that looks like and kind of maybe what opportunities lie there for local musicians and how it kind of affects the music scene.
Well, of course, the Beatles bring a lot of money into Liverpool, tourism-wise.
Oh, that's right. They're from here, aren't they?
I believe so, yes. Well, the most famous band in the world. So, of course, Liverpool has to use that to its advantage. We get lots of tourists in Liverpool every single year. I'm actually from St. Helens, but not too far away, 12 miles away. But I've always come into Liverpool. So I've always basically lived around Merseyside. But yeah, with the Beatles and music, of course, you've got the Cavern Club. And you also have a lot of other venues around Matthew Street that capitalise on the Beatles.
Yeah.
You see a lot of music tribute artists, cover artists. And yeah, I think the Beatles, because they bring so many people, international people into Liverpool, it's definitely a benefit for the music scene in the city. But of course, but in the article I recently wrote for Red Shutter Club, I mentioned, that it can have some downsides because, of course, some venues have a preference for, a lot of venues have a preference for covers rather than originals. So I think it's about sort of using the Beatles to the city's advantage, to musicians' advantage because of the people it brings in. But also, I think, like you said, Monday Club is brilliant. And a lot of people go to the Cavern Pub as well, which is just across the road from the Cavern Club, because of the Beatles. And they wander in on a Monday night, not knowing what Monday Club is. And then they get to see original artists up. Yeah. So I think that's a really good example of how the Beatles can still be positive for original artists.
So how do you think the scene now differs from when the Beatles were running around? Like how is it different? How has it changed? How is it the same?
Well, I think a big difference is obviously Liverpool now is more, I'd say, international tourist-wise. It's always been a port city, so it's always been international. Of course, the Beatles got into music because there were records coming into Liverpool from Elvis, from across the water, across the pond in America. But yeah, obviously it was a very different time when the Beatles were starting out in the 1950s, early 60s.
Because when they were playing the Cavern and stuff, they were doing their original stuff. So was it a lot more common for venues to want original music?
I think it had a lot to do with just bands coming up at the time around Liverpool and Merseybeat and, you know, that whole scene. When the Beatles first played the Cavern, when it had a different owner, it was a jazz club originally.
Yes, I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah. So John Lennon got basically banned for playing rock and roll in the Cavern originally before management changed. You know, a lot of people don't realize that. It started off as a jazz club. So I think because of the scene and the popularity of Merseybeat at the time definitely helped with that. But you've got to remember as well, the Beatles got the big start in Hamburg, really. And there's a great story of Brian Epstein working. Of course, he had NEMS records, and someone coming in and asking for My Bonnie by Tony Sheridan and the Beat Brothers, who he later found out was the Beatles, and they play in the Cavern. And so that's how Brian found them, you know, from that Hamburg record.
So you work as a freelance marketer, and you do a lot of work with it's mostly social media marketing, correct?
Yes, so I do freelance marketing, and also on-site stuff. So it's not just social media. I also do kind of like creating content.
Yeah.
So back to original music. Early last year, we had Cal Ruddy, Morgan Wood, Richard Batty, and Liz Owen up at 25 Upton Green, the George Harrison house. And I did like a video shoot of them performing original songs up at the house, which was cool. You know, it was great to put that on because, again, you know, it's another example of how you can sort of use that Beatles, you know, to promote, basically, to promote other things that are connected, music, obviously.
What are some ways then that you think we can further use, you know, groups like the Beatles to push original music? Because it feels like something that could really help, but you've almost got to do it in the right way.
Yeah, you've definitely got to do it in the right way. I think I've heard, you know, some original songs that sound very Beatley, which are really cool. Obviously, that's one way of doing it, but also it's great for people to just be fully original. Yeah, I think that there's definitely a line, you know, a fine line that you don't want to kind of cross.
If you put on the mop wig, you know,
yeah. And start playing originals, like you just become the Ruttles then, you know. But I mean, that's great too, but obviously artists need to get their own fully original stuff out.
I think I've heard a lot of people say, I don't think anyone said it on the podcast, but you talk about people who try and sound a certain way. I hear a lot of original artists say it about the people who get up and sing in cursive, like do the indie sort of singing. And they're like, someone's already done that. Blink-182's already done that. You've got it. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
The Beatles are great. What are you going to do? You know?
Exactly. I mean, yeah, it's definitely, you know, you don't want to be putting on any voices, like trying to sound like Macca or John or, but, you know, at the same time, the Beatles are a massive part of Liverpool.
Yeah.
And it can help with promoting venues. It can help with artists. It's kind of a knock-on effect more than anything, because you get tourists coming to Liverpool for the Beatles, but they go to other places and
hope
explore.
They stay for...
Exactly, yeah. So it's kind of promoting to people, you know, who've come here for the Beatles, but have a look at this other thing.
Yeah.
Have a look at this original artist. Have a look at this venue. Have a look at these things you can do. For example, I've got a lot of international friends who are Beatles fans, and when they come to Liverpool, I like to show them things that aren't Beatles related,
Yeah.
because they do the Beatles related stuff automatically because
Yeah.
they're Beatles fans.
Oh, and I did it the first time
Yeah.
I came here. You know, I've been to the Beatles store. We walked up and down Matthew Street. I can't tell you how many times. It is crucial. But it took me living here a few years to find the other stuff. And maybe that's just because I'm bad at looking for things. But it definitely seems like the more you can intertwine those things, the better it could help everybody out. You know?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. I don't think. I think a lot of. No. I think a few artists who've been on the scene for a while and are into the history who've been on the show, they've talked about Mercy Beat a little bit, but I don't know that many people who watch this outside of Liverpool, because we do have an audience outside of Liverpool, believe it or not. And it's not just my grandmother in New York, I promise. But,
Hi, Shannon's gran.
hi, Grandma sis. Oh my God. But maybe could you talk a bit about Mercy Beat and kind of what it was and what it did? Because it's a really cool thing. I'm just not the person qualified to talk about it.
Well, Merseybeat, I mean, it's the Liverpool sound. So other than the Beatles, you've got Jerry and the Pacemakers, the Searchers, you know, lots of different artists that played the Cavern, played around Liverpool, and it's basically a signature 60s Liverpool sound. And you'll notice it's very much replicated by other bands as well. Like, for example, the Hollies definitely took inspiration, and Herman's Hermits, even though not from Liverpool, but they took
Thieves.
inspiration from Merseybeat. You know, with the Cavern Club, a great band that plays every Sunday called The Shakers, and they do like a full set of Merseybeat. Like, they're very much like a Merseybeat tribute to Merseybeat, and I've been following them for years. So shout out to them. But that was kind of how I originally kind of got into Merseybeat, because I've been going to the Cavern Club since I was like 13. Like, I used to go with my grandfather, and then obviously as an adult I could go in on my own. But yeah, Merseybeat is a massive part of the history. And, you know, like the early Beatles stuff, you know, it's like the foundation for what they became later.
Wasn't it also a magazine?
It was, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes, Merseybeat magazine.
Okay.
I'll have to look into that, like where the term Merseybeat came from. It might have come from the magazine.
We'll do that for next season. Yeah. Does that mean there's a possibility that there's going to be a Red Shutter review sound? Is that what's going to happen? That'd be cool.
That'd be cool.
It's just the wailing of drunk people on Matthew Street past 3 a.m. That's what the Red Shutter review sound is. So, because you work in marketing relating to music, what are some ways that, I guess musicians can better market themselves? Because from what I see around the scene and what I hear from a lot of people who are in marketing, is that a lot of people aren't doing the best. They're doing the most, but it's not necessarily the best, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Okay.
I think definitely with marketing, I think it's actually might be better to say what not to do.
Fair.
Because, you know, things like spamming Facebook groups with your gigs, private messaging everyone on Facebook to tell them about a gig, that's too invasive. You're just going to annoy people doing that. You know, it's better to step back a little bit, and think logically about where to promote yourself. For example, on social media, if you're in a group and you play punk, you don't want to be promoting.
You don't want to go to like the old folks' home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, certain ones, I'm
Well,
sure.
that maybe
Granny.
if
Granny
they're
does
punk
love
fans, yeah,
her death metal.
it's promoting in appropriate places, not spamming, making sure that groups you do promote in are actually, allow it.
Yeah.
And also being consistent on social media, consistently posting. So not just like leaving your page alone for months and then coming back to it.
You don't have to call me out like that, Jade.
But yeah, consistency, it's good for the algorithm on social media and to keep it consistent.
Yeah. And I think that because my degree is in business and we did take marketing classes, I don't know the virility, if that's a word, of the Liverpool John Moores University marketing classes, but hey. But a big thing that we were kind of told is it's not, someone's not going to care about you in the nicest way possible. They don't care. They're not going to unless you give them something they want.
Exactly, yes.
Then they have a reason to. So if you're just spamming everybody in your book for your gigs all the time, I think there are exceptions. Like if you've been in the scene a while and you like this is your first one and it's something people have been talking about for a while, that's a little different. But if that's what you're doing for every single gig, that's not going to work long term. But if you can give people something, then they're much more likely to follow, to like, to come to an event, because we're all kind of innately selfish and we want something out of it. And because there's so many musicians all over the place here in Liverpool and online, that's not enough. You have to do a little something more than that.
Exactly. I mean, it's oversaturated.
Yeah.
There are so many aspiring musicians, so you have to stand out. And you have to be, I think you have to walk the line between being professional and also being not boring, like being fun. But you don't want to be too controversial, I think.
Yeah.
And it's good to have a separate business page to your profile, I think. And also to be careful what you post on your profile, because you see it all the time on social media. Someone starts going off on one, and people fall out with them, and then they've lost some of their following if they're a musician. So it's being
we don't want to
careful.
get cancelled.
No, you don't want to get cancelled. It's not just that; it's just upsetting people in general. You want to be polite. You don't want to rattle too many, I mean, it's different with your songwriting. If you want to be controversial, that's fine. But if you're just arguing with people in the comments all the time, then it's not going to look good on you. And it's just a waste of time, really. You've got to sort of, I think, keep your personal, life and your professional life a little bit separate. Because I just notice it a lot, like especially with artists where they get very high rate about something and it's all over social media, and I just sort of think to myself, that's people are looking at that and they're relating it to what you do. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's also just from like a mental health perspective, it's good to set some barriers. I think with social media, it's become everybody has access to you at all times when that's not that's not normal. That's a
Yeah.
new thing. I realized this when I accidentally acquired an organ, like a Yamaha, or not an organ, but an organ, a couple days ago. And I was just sitting there playing, and I'm like, I used to spend my days at the old Wurlitzer organ we had in the basement. I wasn't on social media. I wasn't sharing everything that I was doing. I didn't give a shit about what everybody else was doing. I was just sitting here desperately trying to learn how to play House of the Rising Sun. So you've keeping that sort of distance, not only is it good for your public image, but it's good for like yourself.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Your sanity. Yeah.
I mean, when I was like a teenager on social media, like I used to argue a lot with people.
Yeah.
And in YouTube comments.
Yep.
But now it's like, what's the point?
Mm-hmm.
It's a stranger on the internet. Even if you know them, what's the point?
Yeah.
It's different. Like if you fall out with someone in person, that's between you and them. If you fall out with someone on social media, everyone sees it.
Yeah.
That's the difference, you know.
Mm-hmm. So this has been lovely. I think with that we might sign off here, Jade.
Yes, of course.
Thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. And if you'd like to follow me music-wise, because like I said, I play keys, you can follow my music page. I'm only on Facebook at the minute, but I will be going up on Instagram as well. So it's Jade Dyas Music. And that's where I kind of post anything gig-related or photos, videos, me performing. And yeah, and if you want to get in touch with me about marketing work as well, just get in touch.
Yep.
Through social media.
So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for tuning in. What came first, the magazine or the term?
That's a good question. Don't ask me that.
I'll put it in after the fact, and we'll make it look like I'm the one who's confused.